Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I know there's lots going on right now, so we're very happy that you're here. My name is Karl Kalinkewicz. I am the head of graduate recruitment at NYU Abu Dhabi, and I work very closely with our Master of Fine Arts program, with bringing students to study at NYU. And what we wanted to do tonight, we have Terri, Geis, one of our co-directors of the program, one of the faculty at NYU Abu Dhabi, and then we have two of our students, Noor and Danutė here, who are going to talk a little bit about their practice, their craft, I know one of the themes of this series of talks has been craft and what that means, so we're going to talk about that, and just talk about what kind of opportunities exist in, kind of growing your practice, growing your ability with craft as part of a Master in Fine Arts program, and what you could expect from that. So I'll start off by, I guess, Terri, maybe I'll have you go first and talk a little bit about yourself and kind of what your role is, and then Danutė and Noor, you can talk a little bit about yourselves and your practice and who you are as an artist.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Terri Geis. I am the co-director of the MFA program at NYU Abu Dhabi. And I've just joined in this capacity, but I've been teaching in the MFA program since it started 4 years ago. And I honestly can't believe that we have now been running this program for 4 years. And it's a program that's building and building and building and attracting quite interesting emerging artists, mid-career artists into the program. And my day-to-day existence is down in the art studios with the students, talking about their work, mentoring them, discussing opportunities to further their careers and their thinking as artists. And I've been lucky enough to work with both Danutė and Noor in this last year. And they are just two of many examples of really brilliant artists that are emerging out of the program.
My name is Danutė, and I'm a second-year student in the MFA program. And I'm quite new to the region, so I came to Abu Dhabi basically for this program. Before this, I studied in France, and I'm originally from Lithuania. And in my practice, I use painting, sculpture, installation, and writing and performance, so many things, to talk about our relationships to objects. So it's a very short description, but basically it's what englobes my practice.
Hello, my name is Noor Al-Berry. I'm a first-year student. I'm an Egyptian artist. My background is in architecture, and in 2021, I was awarded the Christo and Jean-Claude Award, which was actually exhibited at NYU. And it was a pivotal moment in my practice. And I interrogate the immaterial and spatial dynamics of state-controlled landscapes. And I delve into the complexities of collective consumption and kind of the pervasive forces of consumptions that emerge. And through processes of layering, erasure, distortion, and transformation, I try to question the narratives that are embedded within these terrains, and using materials that kind of challenge their representation rather than reaffirm them.
Great, thanks. We're off to a good start. So I'm going to ask, I guess, both of you as students, right now, the question, what does craft mean to you, and how do you get to explore that in kind of the work that you're doing right now as an MFA student?
So I think when thinking about craft, I think about something that one practices every day or continuously, constantly. So it can be writing, it can be pottery, it can be painting, teaching, whatever. And it's something that can involve handiwork, but also it's something that is creative, but also that you have to practice constantly and over a longer period of time. So as a practicing artist, I see that aspect of craft very important because that just allows me to better the craft that I do. So I think it's the consistency and time that defines craft for me.
Nora, what about you?
I think for me, it's kind of a negotiation. It becomes an intimate negotiation, I think, for me, between me and the material most of the time. But it's also one of these things where the body has to be very present in it and kind of exerting that force and the gesture onto the material and to kind of represent that subject matter and in a way to kind of also embody that subject. So it becomes like almost a choreography, like control, and how much you're asserting control and how much you're kind of relinquishing it also at the same time.
Yeah, and so Terri, I'll put this next one to you. So I know both of you just kind of talked about time and kind of this practice. And as a student, you're spending 2 years in this program working on things kind of constantly. And Terri, as a faculty member who's working closely with them, how do you kind of interject into these periods of craft making or craft practice that is happening both with yourself, and maybe how do you bring other people or the art community around into this practice as well?
I think the thing that's really wonderful about the program is that it's a very vigorous and rigorous combination of theory and practice. And I think that the role of the faculty, such as myself, in really, really extensive studio visits throughout the entire semester is to try to see where the students are at in terms of how they're integrating the theory and the readings and the research that they've been doing back into the making and back into what they're doing in the studio spaces. So each week, my colleagues and I conduct hours and hours of studio visits and discussions, lengthy one-on-one sessions with each of the students to explore where their thinking is at and to respond not only to the conceptual approaches that they're making, but to the making itself, making all sorts of suggestions about what it is that they're making. I don't know if the two of you want to offer some specific examples of how that process has unfolded or your impressions of that process?
Yeah, I think the program actually respects that aspect of time a lot because it gives you the space to kind of explore stretching and manipulating that time period in which the work can kind of exist. And it also kind of offers the space to not offer a conclusion so early on in the work when researching and kind of discovering requires that time. And yeah, I think the faculty has been very supportive in understanding that that we need that also in our practice. So yeah.
And I agree with both of you, and I just wanted to add that the whole program is so dense, so generous that it's sometimes difficult to process everything, but several people have told us that this is a time that we'll be going back to a lot after we finish our MFA. And I really think that it's true because there is so much going on in our heads, in our practice, and it needs time. Like, you cannot just like process everything and make everything that you want now. Yeah. So I think it's just like a treasury that we'll come back to afterwards.
Okay, now I'm back. So you talked about what kind of opportunities do you think exist for you, in this program that you wouldn't have elsewhere? If you were just, say, an artist practicing here in Abu Dhabi, or if you're, up in Dubai, working on this. Like, what are some of the ways that you kind of get to explore your practice that might be different because you're in this type of program?
I think first thing is that we have a space. We have our own individual studios, and those studios are together with other artists. So there's a sort of a community that forms, which is so precious and so rare because we get to spend time in our studios and we work by ourselves, but then we just visit each other and talk do informal critiques, and it really is, I think having this sort of community is really precious, and it allows us to feel safe and to grow. And then there is the faculty, the community we have with the faculty, because our cohorts are not very big, so the relationships with the professors are also close, and they know us personally, and they can really help us by knowing us. And what I personally really appreciate in NYU is that it's a university that has so many different, like it has all the fields of study. So I hang out with science students, and they have a different perspective on what we do, and you really have to change the way you talk about it, because like the language, sometimes we get too stuck in the like arts language that we forget like that other people don't really understand what we're trying to say. So I think it's really useful to have this like close-knit, safe space, but then also that is connected to a larger community.
Nora, what about for you?
Yeah, I think I agree with Danutė. The community is really important because it's not only about like who we're surrounded with, the other students in the MFA, but it's also about the community of people that kind of also come and visit, and that part is also equally as important. And even though we are all coming from different backgrounds, and we all bring in such a unique perspective on things, and it's actually very nurturing to be speaking to someone and kind of gauging their observations on work. And it's equally as important to have kind of maybe more established artists or institutions kind of coming in and also opening the space for those conversations. But on top of that, it's genuinely like the multifaceted aspect of the experience of being in NYU. Like Danutė said, like you're hanging out with science people, you're hanging out with math people. There are math people that are helping me with an artwork that I'm working on now. So it becomes very multidisciplinary and like collaborative in a way that you wouldn't really have if you weren't in this community.
And Terri, I know they both just talked about this community that exists there. Like how, from the faculty and kind of director perspective, are you engaged, like bringing the community, the art community of the UAE, maybe even the global art community into the classrooms, into the studio spaces that exist at NYU?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're very, very lucky that the program is constantly able to invite people from the region and beyond to be visiting, to have one-on-one studio time with each of the students. So we have curators, we have artists, we have art historians, we have filmmakers, we have intellectuals and writers that are constantly coming through the studios. And this happens from the very beginning of the program. So within a few weeks, students have the chance to, they settle into their studios, and then right away they're expected to interact, not only, of course, with the faculty of the campus and the wider community as they've been describing, but with everyone who's coming through for these really rigorous one-on-one sessions. And then we really, really try to engage the wider community of Abu Dhabi and the UAE as constantly as we can. So we are constantly taking trips to all of the events that are happening, whether it's the March meeting in Sharjah, or whether it's two events here in Abu Dhabi. We have been in conversation with the team from the Guggenheim about developing collaborations with them and new potential possibilities for our students, for research, for projects and programs. So this is something that kind of is constantly happening, and because it's a new program and because it's a small program, we have the ability to be really flexible in our interactions. So we'll suddenly hear that someone is coming through town from anywhere in the world, and we can invite them to come. Or suddenly we learn of an event that's happening, and we can organize the time to go and do that and be really flexible about this. We also take students out into the wider world. Each cohort has the opportunity to take a trip to an international biennial. And I'm very happy about this because I've been the one to accompany each cohort. So the first group.
It's really hard being a faculty member
Yeah,
sometimes,
I know. It's,
right?
it's terrible to have to take really wonderful artists to biennials. So we've been to Venice. The last year the cohort went to Taipei to the biennial there. And this year on Monday, we're taking the group to Tokyo. And each of these trips entails meetings with local curators and artists and studio visits regionally, along with, of course, all sorts of exhibition viewing opportunities. So we really see ourselves as kind of operating within the context of the UAE, the context of the wider region, building as many collaborations as possible. Given that a lot of our faculty are international and coming from different networks of artists and communities around the world, we also have Zoom sessions. So sometimes we offer feedback and crits through Zoom studio visits. And the whole thing, the whole MFA culminates with an exhibition that happens for each cohort at 421. So there's the chance for each of the students to publicly showcase their work in an outward-facing direction, and this is always an extremely well-attended and really significant community event for the artists and for the wider cultural networks of the UAE.
Yeah, I know it's not all the time that somebody graduating from, say, an MFA program gets to walk out with their kind of CV, with this very large, wonderful show at the end of it. That's a very public show that happens for a few months. So I do think that's something that is very, very great. That's part of this. I think I have one more question for the two of you, and then I'll open for questions to anybody who has them. But if somebody was going to ask you for one piece of advice, if they're like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to do an MFA program or if I want to go into more studies, like maybe even more of an academic, part of their art practice, what's one piece of advice that you would give to them if they're having that kind of those kind of thoughts or wanting to potentially pursue that path?
I would say just don't think of it as a master's of fine arts, because it's much more expansive than that, and the way that the directors, both Terri and Tina, have kind of structured it, have given us the space to make it much more than that. And you can really do whatever you want, and there are people working with coding, there are people working with language, there are people working with sculpture, there are people working with printing. Like, you get to define whatever you want to make out of it, and kind of that's where it kind of becomes so special, I think.
I wanted to add on that. I really think it's not just a degree, even though degree is always important, and it opens doors because MFA is terminal degree, so you can be a professor afterwards. So it's important to keep that in mind. But also it gives you space, it gives you resources, it gives you a period of a pause to actually concentrate on your work, on your practice. It gives you safety from the real world, so you can not think too much about for example, the art market or how to actually survive. I mean, it comes eventually, but I think it's so precious to have this time to actually do the work, to think about what is important to you, and to have all these resources available to you. So yeah, I think it's just so precious and a great opportunity.
And Terri, is there advice that you'd give from your side as somebody who chooses students to come into these programs, who's worked with students, who's been now a few years, I guess, after your own studies? Like, what kind of advice would you pass along?
I think that for those who are considering an MFA and who are currently living and working in this region or anywhere else in the world, I mean, I think one thing we haven't touched upon, but that is kind of apparent from the stage here, is that it's an incredibly international program. So we have students that are coming from all over the world, and I think that this is something that really enriches the conversations that are happening down in the studios and provide really amazing opportunities for exchange. And some of our students are in our little audience here right now, and so it's a really supportive environment in that way. And I think that this is something that we are really looking for with each of the cohorts as we select them, as we look through the applications, is we think not only about the strength of each individual applicant, but the ways in which the cohort is going to be able to communicate amongst each other and how they're going to be able to strengthen each other's collaborative possibilities and individual possibilities. And right now we are actually running through a series of individual portfolio reviews for people who are considering entering the program. So Tina and I are always available to consult with people who are possibly interested in applying for the program to talk one-on-one about what it entails and what else you might need to know about it.
Great. Well, I do want to open up if anybody in the audience has any questions, whether it's about, for either the artist here, about their practice, or about, MFA programs, about NYU Abu Dhabi. If anybody has questions, just, I guess, raise your hand, and either we'll find a mic or I'll walk a mic to you right now.
Thank you. Hi, I am Boubacar Bukhari, and I am an artist. Just I like it when you have mentioned the surviving, moving from away insecurity and all this environment you have. I don't know about you, Doctor, if you can just, there is challenge and contradiction here between the real world, the artist he gonna live with and he gonna need to survive, and the safe environment in the when he's studying. Yes, it's good for the student to have this time to create, to develop his practice. But do you think if he can have real concrete project, he can deliver for, I don't know, prepare with the museum, for exhibition, other, like the artist he gonna face after? Yeah, this is my...
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. That's a great question. And I think that that's something that we've addressed pretty substantially in the curriculum of the program. So throughout the program, we have regional professionals and experts, whether they're artists, curators, art historians, who not only are coming in to do one-on-one studio visits, but who also come in to give sessions about grants proposals, who come in to give sessions about installation structures and exhibition structures, what else, Danutė, what else have you all been?
There are also opportunities that come within our network of art people in Abu Dhabi and Dubai that bring opportunities to artists. Like 2 of the MFA students have work that is being exhibited in the fair here, actually, so.
Absolutely, and it's definitely the case that through the studio visits that we're always doing, there have been many alum that have had opportunities to exhibit as part of the Louvre Prize, as part of, we've had
emerging artists here at Abu Dhabi Arts. Like we've had Art Circle Prize up in Dubai as well. And I think you have a class about art as a career, right? Or like this gets built into the curriculum. Like, how do you market yourself as an artist? It's not just all of the fun and games of experimenting in the wood shop or with the 3D printers or whatever it is that you can work with, but there is also this tangible. It's like, we don't want to give you just a fancy piece of paper at the end of this program and say, well, now you're on your own. Like, it's to prepare you to be a studio artist or an academic artist for the rest of your life moving forward from there. So yeah, we try as best as we can.
And I also wanted to add that I think it's really balanced in the way that there is a lot of space for you to like be in your studio, immerse yourself in the work, and then there's a lot of help and sometimes push, sometimes encouragement to not forget like where we are, what ecosystems are present, and it is also time to make connections, not just like network, but like make genuine connections and then create collaborations. So it's like there's a lot of things that are happening naturally as well. So I think that time is also precious for that. So like to embed oneself in here. Like for example, for me, like it's a new region, so it's really like such a good head start to do that.
Any other questions? And yes.
Hi, I have a question for you guys. So we're talking about craft and language, and just want to ask, how does that kind of get supported by NYU through your practice, and how do you guys use these resources to kind of further that practice?
I mean, the amount of facilities that are in the university help with that a lot because we have probably like a workshop space for every single thing you can imagine. And again, like we said previously, there are people across so many different fields. So it's not just like going to the wood shop or just printing something. It actually becomes like way beyond that because of the access to other people's knowledge that can support you within something that you have. And yeah.
And the thing you mentioned as like art as language that we also were thinking about is I think it's it illustrates well like the program that we have because of the different backgrounds that we come from, the different languages that we speak, whether it's like artistic or like actual languages, and it just like I think a lot about the communication and art as communication, and I just think that being in that environment really helps to find ways to make connections and to communicate through very different mediums and ways, and also like real human connections as well.
And I think you get to learn a little bit about the, academic language of art, as well. Like there's a lot of that comes out in, how do you develop an artist statement? How do you develop, what is going to be accompanying your pieces, on there, which is something that, when you're surrounded by experts who've been doing this for years and years and years, and you're getting different kinds of feedback from, the different faculty and the different people that come in, I think you learn a little bit more about how to articulate, not just your practice as a language, but the language that connects with the people who are going to be viewing your work as well, which I hope is a benefit that you walk away with that. I think outside of a program like this, you're not necessarily getting that type of feedback regularly. Any other questions? Yes, in the back. Oh, 2 questions here. We'll go through. I'm getting my steps in right now.
Thank you. Hi, so my name is Lina, and talking about career-wise, I have 18 years working with intellectual property within this field, and I'm an artist as well. So I do pottery and I do some painting. I have 4 kids. So considering all of this, do you think it's too late for me to join such a program? Yeah, and I think this is for young generation, young kids, probably.
I really think it's not too late. We have students, like all of the 2 cohorts now and cohorts before, the age-wise is really diverse. It's from like freshly graduated from bachelor's to already having like families, children, and careers. So I don't think about it.
I think we've had students in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I think every generation, and we brought some of our brightest and youngest tonight.
And
But,
I think also
yeah.
the program is aware of the very varying lives and commitments that people have outside of the campus, and is really accommodating with this, really wants to have this ethos of those coming from a wide variety of lives in the program.
Yeah, and we've had plenty of students who have come, they live in Dubai, they drive down to take class. We offer housing on campus for anybody who's interested and wants to live on campus and just have that ease of access. Whatever works best for the students that are in there. Again, it can be pretty accommodating to that, but it is also like what I always try to stress to people, it is a full-time program. This is something like you can't work a 40-hour-a-week job and do this on the side. Like this, it is a terminal degree. This is something that, you can go into a professor role afterwards doing. And so the amount of work and I think the amount of research and the time that you're spending, again, with these visitors and with the faculty coming in, it really is a 2-year commitment to that. But we hope that during those 2 years that you find so much benefit of this ability, this freedom to kind of explore and to grow and to learn and to make these networks that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And that afterwards, so hopefully, the career that you'll have, the career path as an artist that's available will just be much, much better than before joining the program. So I know we had one more question here. Oh, we've got a mic behind you.
Okay, perfect. So my question is in fact for the three of you, and I think it's going to give different perspectives. So how do you see your art and NYU's art changing throughout the years you've been here?
That's a good question. I think I had no idea how my art would develop before joining this program. Because it just taken so many dramatic turns, and I just feel like the intensity of the program makes my practice develop so fast and go in so much depth that I hadn't anticipated. And as I mentioned, it's a bit difficult to process everything, but I feel a lot more confident in what I do. I know what I'm trying to say. I know what is my position in different questions and issues. And it's been really tough in the beginning of the program because, as Terri mentioned, we were exposed to so many world-class visitors, and I really needed to step up very fast. And so I think just it still is so transforming for my practice.
Yeah, and I think it's the aspect of challenging. When I came into the program, I hadn't anticipated how much I was going to be challenged and how much people are going to just ask me questions that I have no answer to, which is really important because that is not something that would happen outside of an educational institution. Usually it's very I love your work, I like your work, or I hate your work, and then there's no in-between kind of conversations. And the visitors help with that a lot because even as you're speaking, you start to articulate things about your work that you hadn't originally anticipated. And through this environment, it actually nurtures that aspect of creating work in general.
Terri, is there anything you see in changes, or whether it's your own practice or from students' practice over the years of kind of being in this environment?
I think that each of the cohorts that we've had have had very different personalities, both as a group and individually as artists. I think just returning to this question of the balance between the professional development and the creative life, it really is a program that is trying to strike the right balance between those. And so the openness of it, combined with the constant rigor of it, I would say that in most instances, if you were to ask the cohorts that have graduated how their works have changed, you would find similar answers in terms of not only their own practice, but also the philosophy of their practice and the way that they're talking about their practice and the way that they perceive themselves as artists. I think that you would hear back from most of them, if not all of them, that this had been a pretty transformative experience in terms of how they see themselves as artists in the world.
I think we have time for maybe one more question, if anybody else has anything. Oh yes, one more right up here. Mike coming from behind.
Yeah, just when you have finished, I remember now about something I have discovered after I have finished with my study and everything, and it's come from the real practice as an artist, and and nobody he tell me this when I was studying. The idea it was, do you know what is it was a question. Do you know what does it mean professional? And all the time I was thinking professional, it's to be good in your practice, be doing your thing as an artist, be better in everything, or having a degree also. But in the end I discover it's not this. When you start to sell your art, here you become, or anything else, you become a professional. Anybody he can, when you start, this is the thing. If you don't sell your work as an artist, you become you are an amateur like anybody else. He practiced his art in his weekend. This is what is the difference between this thing and voila. This is the thing. It was just nobody tell me this in the school. Voila. Thank you.
Great. Well, if you have any questions about this program, about applying, about scholarships that we have for the program, come talk to me right after this. I'm happy to give my card to you. If you want to come to campus at some point and see our facilities, see the studios that are there, I'm happy to arrange that as well for you. So thank you. Enjoy our Abu Dhabi. Thanks for coming out tonight.